Hey, how's it going everyone? This is YLAM here. In today's Fuji Friday, I definitely have some news bits to talk about, so let's go ahead and get right into it. The first one that I do want to talk about is the firmware update for the X-T30. This one is a minor firmware update, but it has to do with this little quick button over here. They did a firmware update to where it takes a little bit longer of a press in order to engage the quick menu. This is because a lot of people were tapping this and the quick menu kept on popping up. Unfortunately, they don't allow you to adjust what that timing is. It would have been really nice if you can actually go into the menu settings and be able to adjust the amount of time you need to press in order to actually activate the quick menu. But that aside, it is a quick firmware update, so definitely do it if the quick menu button is annoying you. They did also announce that in June they will have another firmware update to where you can reassign this Q button, which is going to be super useful because if you were a fan of the X-T30, we actually had a D-pad in the X-T20. So those were at least 3 to 4 quick menu buttons that you can assign to the D-pad, which was super useful. So in my opinion, the usability of the X-T30 is kind of a wash for this area because we gained something super useful, but we also lost something useful. For me, I am definitely going to reassign the Q button. This is going to be my white balance button. The reason for that is because when you use the quick menu to use white balance, you can't actually see what you're white balancing. So it's really hard to actually go in there and adjust on the fly. I'd rather have it on white balance to where I can actually see the picture that I'm trying to take and then white balance from there. Now, before leaving the X-T30, one thing that I would love to see on the firmware roadmap for the X-T30 is the removal of the 4 gig limit for video recording. It's already been removed for the X-T3 over here, and it's also been removed for the X-H1. Would really love to see it removed for the X-T30 as well. So hopefully they'll get that on the roadmap soon, because having the X-T30, the smallest and lightest one, having that limit, it is quite annoying. The next news bit to talk about is yet more firmwares. This is going to be talking about the big brother, which is the X-T3. This one got a major firmware update, so we're now at version 3.0, and there's a lot of great things going in for focusing on the X-T3. I'm just going to go ahead and put it up on the screen because I'm going to do a separate video on the firmware for the X-T3 because there is definitely enough to look at, because I do want to try out every feature. So look for that video coming out in the next week or so. Again, before moving on from this part of the segment, this is a great reason why you want to own Fuji systems, is because these firmware updates, they come out so often, but they really give you major enhancements, really boosting the system all around. This is something that's super cool about owning Fuji cameras, and it's something that's really underrated that a lot of people outside the Fuji community don't know about. But this is something that I really appreciate, and this is the reason why I do videos on firmware, is because Fuji really should get recognition for the amount of work they put in on upgrading the firmware on these cameras and really boosting their potential. This is also the reason why I always recommend the X-T3 or the X-T30 over the X-H1. It's because the X-H1 is built on older technology, and I don't really expect them to have any more major firmware updates for the X-H1. It is a very great and capable camera, but unfortunately we're seeing all the advancements coming on the new sensor and also the new CPU. That's just the way it is. It also means that the X-H2 is going to be highly anticipated, so there's going to be a lot riding on the X-H2, so we'll see how that turns out. So the last item that I want to talk about is the new Viltrox 85mm f1.8. This is a third-party lens with autofocus, and that's what makes it interesting. And I've been holding off on talking about this mostly because you can only buy it right now from a third-party retailer like eBay, and I just don't really trust that, because if I have issues with the lens, I really don't want to be communicating through eBay or directly to China, because I've done that before and it's not a great experience. So I've always held off on doing things like that. But it looks like B&H is going to be picking up selling of this lens, and that's a retailer I trust. So if I have any issues, or if it's just a lens that's not usable for what I wanted to do with it, I can easily return it and not be out anything. That's really what I've been looking for. I've been really interested in this lens because it's one of the few third-party autofocus lens. I feel like this is a major accomplishment for a third party to be able to do autofocus on a Fuji system, because as you know from the articles that I've covered before, Fuji doesn't open source their protocols, so third-party companies have to backwards engineer their protocol in order to make autofocus and communications with the camera to work properly. So this is something that Viltrox has really been working hard on, and I'm really glad that there is a third-party company that's willing to do this, and I would happily support that company so long as the lens is usable for what I want it to do. I'm not really a big portrait guy, so this is a lens that I really don't need, but I feel like if they actually have a great lens, I should at least support them and go ahead and purchase this lens, because occasionally I do need an 85mm, but it's just not very frequent. One interesting thing that I would like to ask the community is, do you think Fuji's actually worried about third-party lenses? Because if third-party lenses get super popular, it's going to definitely take away from their bottom line. Can Fuji survive if third-party lenses with autofocus start coming into its marketplace and really start undercutting Fuji's lens business? Is that something that they can actually manage and survive and still thrive in? Because I feel like if the Fuji systems, if they get super popular, that's something that's just going to happen, and that's a business model that they're going to have to adjust to, because that's just the way of business. As your cameras gain market share, other people are going to come in and start building accessories for it. Lenses just happens to be one of them, and as we all know, when you buy one Fuji camera body, you're going to buy multiple lenses, so it's a good proposition for third-party companies to come in there and build multiple lenses. I for one would love to see a line of Viltrox lenses that are kind of budget-minded for people who are buying, say, the X-T30 but still want a nice lens lineup that's super fast. That's something that I think a company like Viltrox could potentially do. So I'm super interested in seeing where this is going to go and whether or not it's popular enough to where they will continue to build lenses for Fujifilm. So those were the 3 news items that I wanted to talk about this week. Definitely give me your feedback on whether or not you want Viltrox to continue building lenses, and also tell me what features that you would love to see in a firmware update, because more ideas is always better. Anyhow, that's all I have this week. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.